So since the very beginning, the Toyota Tacoma has been absolutely #1 in its class. The mid-size pickup truck segment, Toyota leads in sales, and it is just a fantastic pickup truck. The GM and the Ford product, the Colorado Canyon, and then the Ford Ranger, not really quite as good, and they just do not have the sales to compete with the Tacoma. However, the other Japanese truck from Nissan, the Nissan Frontier, does the all-new truck have what it takes to be a really good competition for the Toyota Tacoma? So in today's video, we're going to take a look at this 2022 Nissan Frontier and comparing it with the third generation, newest version of the Toyota Tacoma. Big shout out to Flo Toyota of Statesville and Flo Nissan of Statesville for providing both of these pickup trucks for today's video. Check out their websites down in the description below. So to start up with, what is powering the Frontier versus the Toyota Tacoma? Both trucks are going to have a 6-cylinder engine. On the Tacoma, we have a 3.5 liter making 278 horsepower and 265 pound-feet of torque. Over on the Nissan, it's a little bit larger at 3.8 liters of displacement, and it cranks out 310 horsepower with 280 pound-feet of torque. The Frontier has a 9-speed automatic transmission, while the Tacoma has a 6-speed automatic transmission. And then as far as the curb weight, the Frontier weighs in around 4,500 pounds and the Tacoma weighs in just about the same. And that also means they can tow nearly identical numbers at 6,400 pounds with around 1,100 pounds of payload capacity. So then moving on to the exterior styling, obviously they do look pretty different. The Toyota has a nice set of chrome headlights, a large grille, Toyota logo right in the center. This TRD Sport has body color pieces for the fender flares and the lower portion of the front bumper. Pretty good looking truck. It's got the hood scoop up front to give it a little bit more sporty aspect. Over on the Nissan, it's got a much different style, much more squared off. I like how we have the LEDs in the top and bottom of the headlights. Has a really cool design, body colored in the center of the grille. We get Frontier stamped, the Nissan logo. So definitely a pretty good difference with how they're looking. And of course, this is subjective. You know, some of you may like one over the other. As far as these side profiles, you can see how the fenders look and everything on the Tacoma. And then over on the Frontier, this one does not have actual fender flares. It just has more of a body molding design. I will say these side profiles look very, very similar. So if we look at the Frontier now, how this crew cab looks with the 4 doors, and then moving over to the Tacoma, very similar proportions. So they're definitely pretty similar in that aspect. And then even talking about the wheelbase, the Frontier's wheelbase is 126 inches and the Tacoma's is 127.4. So you can tell that these trucks are nearly the exact same size. And then if we go ahead and look at the rear styling, the rear fender arch and then the bedside on the Frontier has a really good look. Nice and angled. I like how the taillights wrap around. And then over on the Tacoma, a little bit different as you would expect. The taillights on the Tacoma have a cool smoke-out housing, and they have some chrome trim. And then if we go over to the Frontier, they're much more smoked out with red trim. I do like the taillights a lot on the Frontier. We do get Frontier stamped into the lower portion of the tailgate with your Nissan badge, 4x4. And then over on the Tacoma, this did it first though with the stamping. Toyota really likes doing that. So I'm sure Nissan took a little bit of the design cues over from the Tacoma. But nonetheless, great looking exteriors on both trucks. Comment below which one you think looks better. So with that said, let's go ahead and hop into the interiors and see what they've done different. Into the Nissan Frontier now. This is the all new generation, as you all know. We have a nice leather wrapped steering wheel with the new Nissan logo right in the center. And then a nice set of leather seats. Leather is available on the Tacoma in a limited trim level. But nonetheless, this one is really nice for the Frontier. The TRD Sport, you'll see in a second, is going to have a little bit different style, but we get some cool leather on the armrests, grab handle, and everything. So you can get a good look at the way the Frontier looks. Same with the dashboard, and then the seats. And then moving to the Toyota Tacoma, a much different design for the door panel. And of course, this is really all subjective. We do get power controls, fabric seat for the TRD Sport. But pretty cool the way everything is laid out. Leather wrapped steering wheel. Pretty sporty looking dashboard, especially with these pieces around here that go all around the air vents. I think Toyota did a good job making that look pretty cool. Controls over on the left side. And then your normal gear selector. 3 cup holders, some storage. Engine egg, pretty cool look. So then back in the Frontier, I can fire it up with the push start. So you can see how we have the nav screen in the center, all the controls, climate controls, four-wheel drive selector, which is very similar to the Tacoma. Then we have an LCD display for the center, and then analog gauges on the left and the right. And we can even control it using these buttons. And you can kind of change what you see in the center of the screen. Off-road settings, as you would expect, auxiliary gauges, and then all the driving information. Center screen here, pretty nice the way everything is laid out. Very simple. You have a main menu button, you have all the different controls, and then this is just kind of basic touch screen. Camera icon to adjust. And we'll go into reverse, check this out. We have a nice backup camera with some guidelines. Parking sensors come up there as well. Then we have a pretty good amount of space in here, as you would expect. And then a pretty good amount of space in there as well. Some cool leather trim on the dashboard. And then back in the Tacoma, I do like how you get this cool texture over here to give it some contrast. And like I said, I love the two-tone around the nav screen. Push button start, just like the Nissan, two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive selector. Pretty similar layout, it just looks a lot different. Personally, I do like the Toyota better. I think it looks a little bit more sporty. Although we do get a bigger screen over on the Nissan, the Toyota's is a little basic. We have controls on the left and right for audio, and then the right ones will go through the screen. So not quite as nice screen that the Nissan offers. So I think we're kind of 50-50 on the interior, maybe a little bit more tech on the Nissan, but I think the layout's a little bit nicer on the Tacoma. But nonetheless, really cool looking. We can open up this, a little bit different glove box. This is more of a big shelf versus a bucket. Gear selector for reverse. Nice HD camera with guidelines. Tells you your gear in the center there as well. And then the center console, pretty good amount of space in here. So backseat time, these are not the biggest trucks for the back, but we're gonna check them out because of course you're gonna be using this. So we have the leather back here, which is a really cool touch. Already these backrests look pretty straight up and down. We'll check that out in just a second. But we have storage on the back side of the front seats on both sides. Then we even get USB ports and a 3-prong. Onto the Tacoma, you also get storage down below, just like the Nissan had. Pretty large armrest here. And then back here you can see there's a little bit more recline for the backrest, and then not really any amenities. You do get 2 cup holders though, but no plugs. So then hopping into the back now of the Nissan Frontier, I can already tell the backrests are pretty straight up and down. It's not really that comfortable back here. My lower back is kind of taking a lot of beating back here. Knee room and things, my knees are kind of high up, so I feel like the seat is a little bit short, and then this seat is at a pretty normal height, and yet my knees are nearly touching it. I'm 5'11". So it is a little bit of a cramped interior. We do get a cup holder and armrest that pops out in the center, and then you do get a manual sliding rear glass window. And then the windows are pretty squared in here to give you some light, but I will say it does feel a little cramped in the back of the Frontier for sure. So then now in the back of the Tacoma, noticeably larger. That recline, like I mentioned earlier, feels a lot better. My lower back feels much more supported. Good armrest though, more headroom I feel. You have a power operated rear glass. I'm not sure if higher trim level Frontiers will have a power operated one, but this definitely is larger back here. And even when you look at the outside, the rear doors look larger on the Tacoma. This is a bigger rear end. So if you do have kids, you're gonna be putting car seats or actually putting people back here, the Tacoma is gonna outshine the Nissan for sure. But nonetheless, you know, pretty decent back here for a smaller truck. A few inches of knee room with the seat set at my height, and my feet are fitting a little bit better. The only downside, you do not get any sort of center armrest. So that kind of is a trade-off. So then onto the bed space for the Frontier, we do get a lockable tailgate and a soft open feature. It's gonna slowly lower. It does take its sweet time, so you kind of gotta push it a little bit, and there it goes. But we have a painted bed liner standard. You got some aluminum rails in it, and then a hook on this side, and then each corner looks like it has a hook, power outlet, and then even LED lights. So that is a nice little touch. Pretty decent sized bed as well. Over on the Tacoma, it's also lockable, backup camera as well. Opening that, it soft opens a little bit quicker. Plastic composite bed liner, so that could be a downfall with a Tacoma. However, it is pretty darn durable. We do have rails on the left and the right side. They are made out of metal. And then we have tie-down hooks up front, a power outlet over on this right side, and some storage. And then no LEDs in this particular one. However, I think it is available. Tailgate itself has a little bit of weight to it, but not really too bad. Going to the Nissan, wow, much lighter weight. So overall, I think these trucks are kind of coming out to be pretty similar in certain ways. Bed and tailgate I think is a little bit better on the Nissan. I like the rear end a little bit better than over on the Tacoma. However, the Tacoma has much larger rear seats and the tailgate works a little bit easier lowering it. And then the looks, I think the interior Tacoma looks a little bit better, but I like the Nissan screen. All right, so starting the test drive, hitting a speed bump in the Toyota Tacoma. If you do want a more in-depth view of both of these trucks, I'll have videos linked down below for full walk around and reviews. But pretty comfortable sitting in this truck right now. Really good view out. I like how the hood has that vent, you can kind of see that. Good visibility overall, really no complaints there. The rear headrests do fold down. So we have not as much power and then not as good of a transmission. So get up to 35, hitting the brakes. Nice truck overall. My brother has one, so needless to say, I've been in these things quite a lot. We'll get up to some speed. It's pretty peppy. The transmission is a little sluggish, so it's certainly not the best. The gear ratios in the back are not the best for this transmission, so Toyota definitely needs to work on that a little bit. But overall, the Tacoma is a really smooth truck to drive. It drives kind of like a truck. You know, it's not going to be the best daily driver vehicle. It's not like a nice SUV is. So it drives like a truck. You know you're buying a truck when you get this thing. But overall, really no complaints. You know, the steering is nice and light. The brakes do a really good job. Just a good overall truck. It's very capable on and off road, the towing capacity and things like that. It's comfortable seating position. You can adjust them, and all power controls are nice. Armrests are in a great place. Super simple to use the navigation screen. I like how you have physical buttons and touch screen. Very easy to use all the controls for climate. The button back here to do the rear glass is an awesome touch. And then to finish it up for this truck, we'll just back it in, test out that kind of visibility, good turning circle, shifter's in a great place, backup camera works really well. This is the benchmark. I mean, it's no secret that the Tacoma is #1. It has been #1 since the beginning. Manual parking brake, so no secret, it's a great truck. Let's hop in the new Nissan and see what it's like. All right, so we are now in the Nissan Frontier. Gonna test this out doing the same loop. First off, I already noticed the steering is actually a lot heavier on this truck. Nice and smooth suspension going over the little speed bump again, and I really like the feeling of the leather on the steering wheel. Visibility is pretty much identical. The hood is a lot smaller feeling in this truck. It's not as bulky, I would say, as the Tacoma, so it's a little bit more pointed versus wider feeling. Visibility the same. The rear windows are noticeably smaller comparing it to the Tacoma, so I think that's a slight hindrance, but you can still see out fine, so I really don't see any issues. It sounds very similar to the Tacoma as well, getting up to speed and then hitting the brakes. And then we'll get up to some speed again on this one stretch. Very peppy. It definitely feels a little bit more peppy than the Tacoma. Shifts pretty quick. It kind of rings out a little bit more than the Tacoma, I would say, but you feel more power. As far as the bumps and ride quality, it feels just as solid, honestly. I wasn't expecting that, because I've been in the Ranger and the GM trucks. They feel a little chinsy feeling, I would say. This one actually feels much nicer than I thought. I was expecting it to feel a little cheap, but it actually feels pretty solid too. Yeah, I like the power plant for sure in this. I think this does give the Tacoma a run because I think that's a little bit better having the 9-speed and more power. And it feels really solid. You can feel some bumps and things like that, but really solid truck. The interior, I think it's a little more plain looking. I like the Tacoma's interior much better. But we'll go ahead and back into the same spot. Got the backup camera and everything. I like all the guidelines. You have more guidelines in this truck, so I think it's a little bit easier to get it perfect, even though I overshot this turn. But I like the camera a little bit better on this. I think that's slightly improved. The colors are also more crisp. In the Tacoma, it looked a little black and white when you're facing the sun. So a little bit more modern camera, I would say. And then as far as the interior, now that I'm actually kind of in it and using it, it does look pretty nice. The squared off design, I'm not too big fan of. I like the Tacoma's a little bit more like modern looking. And I'd say the door panels on this feel a little bit cheaper too. They seem a little thinner, and then the back seat space definitely. But as far as getting comfortable and everything, No real complaints there, pretty nice truck. So I think that is then it comparing the Tacoma with the all-new Nissan Frontier. I think Nissan did do a really good job. Overall, pretty solid truck. They both have some pros and cons. This feels a little smaller on the back, but then gets a little bit better drivetrain setup. So both trucks have a lot to offer. I would say this feels a little nicer overall, actually, than the American trucks. I think I would prefer this, especially over the GM. The Ford Ranger I do like. The interior is very boring on that. And the 4-cylinder, while it's very peppy, not everybody likes a 4-cylinder in a truck like this. But that is our little comparison of a new Tacoma versus the new Nissan Frontier. Comment below your thoughts. Do you think Nissan did what it needed to do to make this a real competitor to the ultimate truck in this class? The Tacoma's been class leading for a reason, but I think Nissan did do a pretty good job. Big shout out and thank you once again to Flo Toyota and Flo Nissan of Statesville for providing both of these trucks for today's video. If you guys enjoyed today's video, give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next video.